Hello, all, and welcome back to a new episode of Movies and Us, a weekly gathering place filled with conversations about movies, stories, and connection. My name is Jennifer Hahn.
And I'm Sarah Callan.
And today we're going to be reviewing the latest release, Anemone. And Sarah, do you want to kick us off with an IMDb summary for Anemone?
Sure. In northern England, a man heads out on a journey into the woods to reconnect with the estranged hermit brother with whom he shared a complicated past that was altered by life-changing events decades ago.
Complicated past, indeed, which we get the full details of, the full extent of. Okay, let's dive in. One sentence summaries for Anemone. Sarah, what is yours?
Mine is poop jokes, family trauma, and forests.
Yeah, a collection of things, a basket of goodies, you know?
Indeed. And I don't know about goodies, but it is a collection of items for sure.
Oh, man. Yeah. What's in your purse, you know? My one sentence summary is Daniel Day-Lewis deserves only the most scenic therapy session backdrop, of course.
Honestly, though, I mean, if you're going to have these, really like deep heart-to-heart moments, why not do it in the middle of the beautiful forest? Sounds great.
I would like to do it by a bubbling brook. Yes, please.
Sounds lovely.
Okay, well, we are not going to spoil this movie. We're going to share our thoughts, our feelings about it at a high level, and then we'll give a spoiler and then dive fully in. So, Sarah, tell me your thoughts about Anemone.
Yeah, I really enjoyed this movie. It is
It's a you movie.
It is a me movie. It is
Very
what
much
it
a you
is
movie.
with all of its flaws. Like the minute that it started, I was like, "Oh, I'm here for this." Like I
know it.
it's a bunch of like little kids drawings and I was like, "Yes, I'm here for this." And then we just get into the forest. I'm like, "This is beautiful."
Yeah.
Like I just
Sold.
let me live here. This is great. It is not a perfect movie. It is very, very flawed. It is a complete vibes movie. And so if you're not here for the vibes, it's going to be a terrible experience for you. But I was here for the vibes. And honestly, like Daniel Day-Lewis just monologuing, great time. I'm enjoying myself. So yeah, I had a really good time with this movie, but I understand why a lot of people don't like it. This is a very not for everybody movie, but it was very much a for Sarah movie. So I'm sorry to everyone who did not enjoy it and was subjected to it. I'm sorry.
This has your name, Sarah J. Callan, written all over it, ma'am. Oh my gosh. As the movie was happening to me, I thought to myself, I think Sarah's probably loving this and eating it all up. Vibes movie is a great way to describe this. I saw someone online describe this like one big long music video, and I'm so tickled by that because I think that's quite accurate. It's like cool visual shots of things and sounds, and then interspersed with like an acting masterclass, and that's pretty much this movie. This did not work for me. I did not enjoy this movie. I can appreciate the acting. I think Daniel Day-Lewis, thank God he's back 7, 8 years since Phantom Thread, back in the saddle. That was thrilling to see. He was absolutely captivating. He saves this movie for me. And I think a lot of the visual choices are fun and interesting, but I was like pinging out for something, for meaning, and it just felt like the movie was interested in creating these stylized moments instead of having it be deeply integrated with the character drama that is unfolding in front of us. And I think that disconnect I felt the entire movie. So really great shots, really cool. I don't know if it means a lot, but it's some interesting like visual stimulus. I also wish that there was more in the character arc, and so we can talk a bit about that too. I think the way this movie's structured is quite different from a traditional film, which I'm totally cool with, but I wish they did it well in my book instead of kind of taking an unconventional approach, but ultimately it didn't totally come together for me in the end. So those are my thoughts about this movie.
Yeah, no, that makes total sense. Yeah, the other movie that I was thinking about after this was finished is a very different movie, but
Oh,
the Banshees of Inisherin I kept kind of thinking about,
yeah,
and that movie we also disagreed on, because I wanted to know more about these characters, and it was like a puzzle and like a mystery for me to solve, so I was like very invested in that film. And I felt kind of similarly with Anemone as well. Like it's vibes, and I'm here for the vibes, and that's interesting. And because I'm here for the vibes, then I'm willing to endure some of the like tedium that this movie is, because it's
yeah.
pretty tedious if you're not into what the movie is serving up. And that the vibes helped me like kind of stay along for the ride and learn more about these characters. They were all kind of a puzzle to me, and I was curious about the puzzle and enjoying the vibes, and so I was like, yeah dude, let's do this. But yeah, a very weird movie, and there's definitely some things it could have done better, but I had a good time.
Yeah, yeah. Let's dive in because I think there's a lot to talk about here, and I think there's choices this movie makes that are really interesting. And I think that maybe with some changes, revisions, tweaks, it could be a better movie, perhaps, for what it's trying to do. So, if you haven't seen Anemone, this is your spoiler. We're diving fully in. I think a worthwhile watch, either wherever you land. I think it's an amazing, honestly, acting performance from Daniel Day Lewis. Like, just go to see him be incredible and talented is more than worth it alone. Um, and in addition to a lot of like the other exploratory stuff this film is trying to do. So let's dive in. Where should we go first? Sarah, what is something that a choice, a very specific choice that this film makes, perhaps that was interesting and captivating to you?
One of the moments that I loved is very early in the film. We haven't heard Ray speak yet, but we've like spent so much time with him, and just the way that you can learn so much about a person and what they're thinking and what they're feeling just through their body language. So there's that moment when he's alone in his little home, and there's a
Yeah.
knock at the door, or like he hears someone coming to the door, and he grabs the little axe, and then the camera zooms in on his grip on the axe, and you know that he's ready for it to be an intruder. And then that moment when he realizes that it's his brother, and his whole body language changed, the way that he's holding that axe changes. And I loved that, because we don't really know what's going on at all, but
Yeah.
we're just zoomed in on his hand holding this axe, and that tells us everything that we needed to know. And so I love those little touches that you see all throughout the film, where it's like, we don't have to communicate this with words to you, but you are going to pick up what's going on just because of the body language, the acting, everything that's going on. So I thought that that was a really fun way to communicate paragraphs with just like how he's holding this tool.
That for me is the scene that shines the most in this film, and what I wish there was even more of this in this film. There's so much that's spoken without having to say a single word at all. Even the fact that he drops the axe and immediately goes to make a cup of coffee, and before we even know who these people are, their relationship to each other, we see him make a whole 2 cups of coffee, place them on the table. He doesn't greet the guest. He just sits down. The coffee's in front of him, across the table from him. And so there's such shared history that's implied from that. There's such closeness and intimacy. There's no need to do any greeting because I know you and, this is your invitation to sit down. And I loved how neither of them say anything. I think there's a long shot of the brother standing in the doorway and just the paragraphs that come from that long shot of them both knowing you're here again. You're here again, and I think that the way that there's so much meaning in all of that without having to say a lot is where the movie to me visually shines the most. So honestly, at this point of the film, I was tracking with it. I was like, let's go. Like, let's do some incredible show, don't tell. I think there's also a lot that's really meaningful in that interaction because these are two men that have clearly experienced the weight of the world. And so there's a lot that can't be said. There's a lot that's hard to say. And I wish that the film almost like had a longer period of moments like that, them just being together, understanding what each other's thinking and feeling without having to say a lot. But of course, immediately we dive into lots of words pummeling out at us. And I think the rest of the film kind of follows suit. So I almost wish that the amount of time Ray is speaking is shorter. We have longer time for them to like feel each other out and muster up the courage to say those things that are hard to say. And then that makes the moments where they do voice them feel even more powerful. So I think maybe it's a pacing issue of let's get more moments of these two just kind of existing awkwardly together before they can warm up and really pour their hearts out eventually, which they do.
Yeah, yeah. I would have loved that because both of them excel. Because I mean, obviously Daniel Day Lewis is phenomenal in
Incredible.
this, as he is in everything. But he's acting opposite Sean Bean, who is also an incredible actor. And so I think in those, if there were moments of silence like that, we could really see more of that. Because Sean Bean can go toe to toe with Daniel Day Lewis in those kind of moments. So, yeah, I think that there was an opportunity there to really indulge in that awkwardness. And then that brings up so many more questions for us as the audience too.
Mhm.
And we cuz I mean, I did have those questions, but if we sit in that awkwardness for longer, then we feel more of the awkwardness too, and we want that resolution. We want those answers even more. So I think that they really could have milked
Yeah.
that a little bit more than they do.
Yes, honestly, have that last way, way longer. Like two-thirds of the movie of them just struggling to communicate with each other, and the brother really trying to open up the Ray, and Ray just continuously closing the door in his face emotionally. I think would have been really satisfying, so that by the time we get to the ending of the emotional catharsis of him finally being able to share these hard things, it would have felt earned. Instead, Ray starts spewing a lot of stuff already by like the 20-minute mark of the movie, somewhere in there. Like that first, they sit down by the fire and he's pouring things out. And I think delay that as long as possible and have them really struggle for a longer time to open up, because what then ends up happening is we get Ray pouring a lot out, which is important, but there's less of a increase in the emotional tension and the catharsis that's happening over the course of the rest of the film. I would love to have sat awkwardly with these two men as they slowly, like maybe there's little moments where we see that warmth, the willingness to share a little bit, but then he shuts down again. That push pull of getting Ray to open up would have been really satisfying.
Yeah, yeah, I think I agree. That would have been lovely. I think for me, there was enough like guardedness in what Ray was sharing, and like him messing with Jem, him,
Mm,
having this kind of like puffed up bravado, him being angry, but that's not really real. Like there's a lot going on underneath the surface. So for me, it was almost like each story is peeling back a layer, and
yeah.
those first few, obviously, like he doesn't talk to a lot of people because he's
Mm,
isolated and alone, so like even that is a big step, but it's not real. It's an outer shell, it's a facade.
mm,
And the more that he speaks, then the closer you get to who he truly is, and actually shares at the end. So for me, it was satisfying enough because I viewed those other moments of
mm.
sharing as, just kind of messing with his brother or kind of testing his brother, and not actually like deep emotional sharing like what we get at the end. But Yeah, I also would have loved more silence because those moments were
Yeah.
riveting. So I'm happy either way.
You're just happy to be here.
I'm happy to be here. Just
Happy to be at
plop
this
me in the forest. I'm having a great time.
this rundown home in the forest. Just put
Yeah,
Sarah there. She's gonna
it's
have a
great.
great time with Daniel Day-Lewis, just monologuing for
Yeah,
10 minutes at a time. Yeah, I do
absolutely.
think that there's a the the structure and the arc of his layers is is reflective of like who we are as people. You know, there's so much anger at the beginning of the film, and you see that start to become softer and more tender. And there's moments where he's able to shed tears and to like emotionally release in that way. And then there's anger again and bitterness again. And so I appreciated how it was not a linear path. You know, we don't go from anger to sadness and then we're good. Like it was this constant fighting and back and forth of those two emotional states and all of the nuances and um, mixing of different emotions around them. And I think that is significant as well.
Another thing that I wish that this film did more of was I wanted more weird stuff. Like
Yes.
there's only a couple moments that are just weird and you're seeing
Mhm.
things on screen and you're like what am I looking at? I think that there was an opportunity to make this like even more surrealist and like
Yeah.
have more of those really interesting weird visual cues, which would make for such an interesting juxtaposition because you're in this beautiful, lush scenery. And so then to have this like
Yeah.
random creature show up, or, when he's in bed and he sees the woman show up.
Yeah.
So I think that there was an opportunity to do more of that and give us more of an insight into who Ray is, how he sees the world, and to cast some doubt on like what we are seeing as the audience too. I think that there was an opportunity there. I liked what we did get. I just wanted more.
Mm-hmm. I have a note here. More artsy fartsy symbolic stuff. uh there is a there's an interesting like spiritualism in this film that I think could have been explored even further, especially if you imagine someone like Ray who's experienced so much trauma that has isolated himself from the rest of society, living as a hermit. You would see stuff. You would try to find meaning in things that seemingly have no meaning and feel like there's purpose, there's intentionality, there's forces be outside of you that are moving. You know, like I think the way that the hailstorm is shot was so cool and so interesting. That POV angle shot of like almost following from the point of view of a piece of ice falling from the sky almost felt like I was the spiritual force descending upon this place, and him almost relishing in it and it connecting him with his son. Like there's lots of neat moments like that I think could have been more interwoven with the things that he's saying and the things that are happening in his orbit. So I don't know. I feel like the film tried to do some of that a little bit because a lot of his monologue episodes, his podcast episodes, are interspersed with him in nature, him with the flowers, him by the bubbling brook. Uh, but I struggle to like see how they were really that interconnected, other than like we need a visual break before we hear him or before the next episode drops. You know, had there been more interweaving and braiding of those two things together, I think could have helped make this really more meaning, more symbolic in a way. I love symbolism. I am looking for metaphors and symbolism everywhere. So I was trying to be like, the bubbling brook. What does it mean? So some more of the surrealist stuff would have been cool, and especially seeing perhaps the increase or decrease of that surrealist those surrealist realities as he's maybe coming back down to earth, or he is further like finding that emotional catharsis, and that the surrealist images are the expressions of that. I don't know. I think they needed to like have an arc as well for some of those visual pieces.
Yeah, yeah, I totally agree because it feels random, or
Yeah.
it to me it actually almost felt like they originally had a longer movie and they had to cut stuff,
Mm.
and so then they
Mm.
cut those pieces is kind of what it felt like to me.
Oh, yeah.
Because you do want to see a change in that, either like you were saying, it increases or it decreases, like whatever it is, we need to feel movement, but it just kind of shows up randomly, and it's cool, it looks cool, but
Mhm.
it doesn't feel like you were saying like as integrated into the story as it could have been. And it almost feels out of place.
Yeah.
So that is a bummer. I think there was an opportunity there to like really dial that up, because there's so much creativity in this film, in the way that it's shot. The score is also super interesting in creating this world, and so I think having some more of those symbols show up throughout, and just another way to take us into Ray's mind. We have
Mhm.
Daniel Day-Lewis's performance and his body language, which communicates a lot. He has these really great monologues, but like those visual cues could have given us yet another insight into who this character is.
I was thinking about Bardo a lot while this movie was unfolding because similarly, that character is processing through a lot of trauma from in that film from his mother and his childhood. And we see some of the surrealist pieces weave in a little bit at the beginning, but it continues to intensify over the course of the film and finally climaxes at the end with this huge surrealist moment that touches on the exact like root wound for this character. And I think not that this film needs to do that, but I think some sense of momentum or movement or unfolding of this character's emotional states with the surrealism could have been a really interesting alignment. And so that when he finally does make the choice to go home at the end of the film, I was for a moment being like, did we spoiler alert? Yes, we did already. When he chooses to go home at the end, I would buy it. I would believe it. Man, he's wrestled. He's done the work to finally go home again. I don't know. I personally didn't get there by the end of the film to believe and buy that after these few days, all of the things that he's been through have been healed and he's been willing to go home and return home yet. There wasn't a moment or a like crossing of the threshold that felt like it happened for him for me. So I think weaving a moment or building up a moment like that a little bit more fully would have helped me by the ending. It's a great ending. I also love the place that it chooses to cut off. Like they don't have this incredible reconciliation. They kind of just stare at each other and are like, "Oh my gosh, you are before me," and that's probably how it would feel and go. So I think that but still the satisfaction of seeing this man return home again, back to society, back to facing the wife and child that he's left. Like that's a huge choice. And I think I needed a little bit more to believe it.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I think if there were more of those like artsy fartsy moments throughout, then it would feel like we're making more progress,
Yeah.
because it's just Daniel Day-Lewis monologuing, for a couple hours. And so that doesn't feel like progress necessarily. That can feel tedious and like, okay, we're doing this again. Like, when are we going to get some movement? And so I think if there were some like changes in what we were seeing, and some like variance there, then it could maybe help us feel like you were saying, like, okay, we can feel what he's going through, we can feel that there are shifts in him, even if we don't necessarily like see or hear it yet.
Yeah.
Which is why I
Yeah.
keep wondering if this was supposed to be a longer movie and
Mm,
they cut out some stuff.
yeah. Yeah.
I don't know.
I don't know. Yeah, it's already 2 hours. 2
Right? Like
hours
it's a
long.
pretty long
It's
movie.
hefty. It's
Yeah.
quite hefty. Yeah. But I I am as this movie was happening, I was thinking about kind of the meta back story and like source of where this comes from. It's just so interesting to me that it's co-written between Daniel Day-Lewis and Ronan Day-Lewis, and it's a story about fatherhood and brotherhood and sons and parents. And so my mind, as I was like watching this unfold, like just wandered to what that process together between a father and son, writing about a father and son and brother together, like looked like, felt like, what those conversations were that informed this story. I think that's why, like, regardless of how well the movie worked for me or not, I just think that like there's something that felt cathartic about even creating this film that you can feel with the character as the character's experiencing catharsis. So man, what a special process to have got, for them to have the opportunity to like create this together, for the son to direct the father. You know, there's something about the co-creation of a story about the very things that they experience, I'm sure, in their lives. At a meta level, I think that's really cool.
No, I kept thinking about that too. I was like, this is a wild movie to make with your parent. Like, what?
Yeah. Right?
Oh my gosh, I had so many questions afterwards of like, of all the stories in the world, you choose this to make with your parent? Like, wow. So interesting. Such an
Yeah.
interesting choice.
Yeah, yeah. And uh in a lot of ways, like the thesis of this film, its final point is that to finally set yourself free to express and emote fully is the thing that can begin to heal you and bring you back to the people you love most. And that's a thesis I love. It tugs on my heartstrings. And I think that's a really neat part of like this whole movie, if you had to boil it down, is two men sharing the deepest, most difficult wounds that they've experienced together. And the movie's ending is basically saying, and that will lead you back home. You know? And so I think that's really neat to see just put to the big screen in this way, and to have just predominantly these two incredibly like seemingly stoic men in their separate parts of their lives come together and just truly like bare their souls nakedly in front of each other, and ultimately have that be the thing that allows them to heal even a little bit, enough to begin reconciliation. And I mean, we got to root for that, you know, in this lifetime and every lifetime.
Yeah, yeah, and like what an important, message too, when there's so much, toxic masculinity and,
Yeah.
this like macho persona and all of this. And I mean, these were two guys who were in the army. They're
Mhm.
tough dudes and they have that tough exterior, but we also learn that that's a defense mechanism. It's a form of protection. And so it's
Yeah.
cool to see that level of emotion on screen from these two really stoic guys. It's
Hmm.
obviously like not a perfect film, but having that type of emotional release being able to be seen, I think is really important. We talk about it all the time that like the media that we consume helps shape
Yeah.
how we see the world. And so just that permission structure of like, oh, talking about what I've gone through is actually probably really healthy. Like, let me find somewhere safe that I can do that in. Let me take those steps toward healing. Obviously, like a movie isn't going to get you to an emotionally healthy place, but maybe that's just another little reminder on the way of maybe,
Hmm.
maybe there's an opportunity for some self reflection.
And to like showcase and model what's possible, what's on the other side of that vulnerability of bearing your soul before another, or that bearing your soul before your brother who's grown up with you and cares deeply about you, has pursued you to the depths of the forest to come and find you and bring you back home to the people that he knows that you love most. You know, there's something really neat about that. I also thought like we've mentioned it before, the forests, the sea, everything, all of it's so beautiful, but just how much that feels like almost a third character in the conversations with these two men, and the constant presence that this film will not let you forget of how beautiful the environment that they are in is I think really significant. Just being in the presence of beauty, potentially being the thing that can allow them to shed a lot of those hard exterior layers feels significant as well, because so many of the interspersed like montage little sequences between their conversations are them walking along the beach while the most incredible sunset is happening, or them, sitting by the tall grasses in the mountains overlooking the valley. Like, that feels important and intentional to have interwoven in as something that perhaps is softening themselves to each other. So while it is two men on screen, I think something about this like third character of uh, nature itself being part of their conversations too is important.
I think it's also pointing to this, I, I don't know, tendency of people to um, have a hard time sharing your like deepest secrets when you're like face to face with another person, like
Oh
sitting across
yes.
from somebody and being like, okay, now I'm going to pour out my soul to you and I have to look you right in the face and look at all of your express. Like, nobody wants to do that. That's uncomfortable. Gross.
Yeah,
But
don't look at
if
me when I'm bearing my soul.
right, like, don't look at me when I'm crying, stop it, go turn the other way. But I love that in that final moment when Ray like finally opens up, they're sitting next to each other and they're looking out at the sea. And I think that that is also just indicative of what we do. You know, if they were
Yeah.
sitting in Ray's house looking at each other, Ray wouldn't be able to share that stuff. Like,
Yeah.
ew, no, gross. That's too
Oh good.
that's too much. But if we're just sitting here, okay, don't look at me. We're looking this way and I can
Yeah.
share these things. I don't know, it's just such a reflection of how we operate as humans.
That's such a fabulous point, that the moments that there is this connection, this opening up together with each other, how it's staged, how like their literal physical like body orientations being essential and reflective of how we open up and share in those conversations together in our real lives is all intentionally designed, and you're right, so fitting. My gosh, I don't want to sit across the table from anyone when I'm sharing my deepest, darkest, hardest things. And also, I have a friend who is an architect, and she talks all the time about how spaces create moods and feelings that are conducive to certain types of moments. And you sitting in, I don't know, like a sterile conference room with overhead lighting and like desk chairs, perhaps not the place that is most conducive for somebody to like really share something that's difficult, versus like a cozy, comfy living room space that is undone and a little messy. And just so how we as people are so much in our bodies, and our bodies recognize their environments, and there's a like mind body and emotional connection that's happening between all of the dimensions of ourselves that allow for certain moments to unfold more easily, versus perhaps feeling a little bit harder to punch through those barriers. So I thought that's a fascinating way to think about like the space and the environment that they are in, and their orientations together. Long walks together, by the ocean, on the sand, through the forest, by the brook, walks together being a great place. I've had some of the best conversations with people on walks where, once again, side by side, and there's movement too. You can distract. There's, yeah, humans are
Yeah,
so
the
strange.
yeah, we're weird creatures.
Yeah,
But you know what? We're interesting, so we just
yeah.
keep going. But the other piece that I really loved is their dancing scene too.
Mm,
I thought that that was a really important moment as well, because there's there's like vulnerability in that too, and there's
yeah,
movement. There's, you have to have a certain level of like trust with one another to like do that. But then the other piece of that that I really really loved is like after we're inside of the room for a little while and then the camera just pans out and like pans out of the house and the
Yeah.
house is just open, and it almost reminded me of like I don't know if this is a thing, but like cave paintings or something. Like it
Oh, yeah.
seemed like this like prehistoric moment almost where they're like shadows are being
Oh,
cast on the
yeah.
walls and it just looked so different than what we're used to. And so I thought that that was a really like powerful moment for these characters, but then also some really cool visuals to show us something different than we've seen before, as these two are acting different than we've seen them act before.
Mm, mhm. Yeah, there were a lot of moments where the camera's, like, really zooming way far out or, like, through the window. There was a couple moments like that where we see their figures, and we actually can't even hear what they're saying, but it's from behind the window, and the window we're either punching in or punching out, and it felt like it almost looks like it doesn't matter who they are because, like, they're just 2 humans where their souls are finally able to connect and share together, and, like, that is all of us, like, the anonymity of seeing the figures of the 2 of them, but it's blurry, it's hazy. They're just 2 people who are trying to figure this out together. Really allows us to like put ourselves and put any of our relationships into these outlines of who they are.
Yeah, yeah, we all have some emotional stuff to deal with.
Yeah. One of the things that I really loved, this is in the opening of the film, so I was like, yo, I'm so here for this, is the way that we meet Ray in his home for the first time. And how long it takes us to see his face. There's so many like long, slow, oozing shots from behind him. He almost turns, and then it's like, up, but you don't get to see him quite yet. It reminded me a little bit of Nosferatu, 1920 Nosferatu, where we see his shadows, we see his silhouette, we see him from behind, but we don't get to see him yet. And so he's played up to be this like larger than life figure, this almost creature that's been living in the woods for all these years. And honestly, the first moments that we meet in him, he has that same intensity about him, this presence about him, this force, this menacing force. And slowly, obviously, over the course of the film, we see all of that come undone. But it's fitting. It's he was not overhyped, I was like the first time we see Daniel Day-Lewis's eyes and his face and just how much life has been lived on that face with all of his wrinkles and that like searing look that he has in his eyes. I think it was menacing, and it lived up to almost this like tension and anticipation of like, who is this man that has completely shut himself off from society and has been like assumingly devolving over all of these decades.
It's so funny because I was also thinking about a movie during all of
Oh,
those shots, but I was thinking about a very different movie,
which movie?
which is Portrait of a Lady on Fire. Because
Interesting.
it takes so long until we finally see Heloise's face, and you see her ear, you see
That's
her
true.
neck, you see her moving about, but it takes so long until she finally turns and faces the camera, and it's so jarring when she finally does. So it's just so funny that we went in two very different directions with not seeing Daniel Day-Lewis's face for a very long time. But I do think it's so effective. You just have so many questions. You obviously know that it's Daniel Day-Lewis because
Yeah.
hello, it's Daniel Day-Lewis.
There's only like
But
4 people in this entire movie anyway.
exactly. He obviously it's him. But man, it's this like delayed gratification. And when you finally do see him, it's like, "Oh, okay." And I think especially because we haven't seen him in a movie in so many years too. Like that's also satisfying of like, "Oh, it's really
It's
him. He's
there.
back."
It's like the movie knows that you've been
Yes.
waiting to see this, and it's
Yes.
gonna make you wait a little longer and a little
Mhm.
longer and a little longer before you get to see him just absolutely kill it. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh, this man.
Yeah.
So good. So good. I love in a lot of his monologues, especially in the first part of the film, uh, when they're sitting over the fire and whatnot, just how close the camera is on his face. It is closer than comfort, but fitting. You know, that's it's not just, oh, like we're gonna do his whole face in frame. It almost is like his forehead and his chin are cut off too, so that you're all up in his business. And it was captivating. I felt like just drawn into this presence, hanging on to his every word and seeing like every emotion cross his eyes. Daniel Day-Lewis, I think, does an incredible job in this film specifically with the the meaningful pauses. He chooses to time these like big dramatic pauses at just the right moment and for the right amount of time. And I think just his intuition around when and how to pause to add so much more feeling and emotion to what he's saying was pretty genius. So that was, I think, really neat to see his kind of like rhythmic pacing of when and how he adds emphasis through pausing in silence before he says his next words.
Oh, it's so captivating. Like, I was on the edge of my seat. I would listen to Daniel Day-Lewis just monologue about anything. Like, you can read me your grocery list and I would be interested in what you have going on. Like, I j
Broccoli crowns.
yes, I will listen. I will be
Cauliflower
on the
rice.
edge of my seat. Please give me your grocery list, Daniel
Milk.
Day-Lewis. But I think, you really see that that charisma that he
Yeah.
has, really, like, shining through in this, and I think that that's also just such an interesting aspect of Ray's character because he is a hermit, because he is isolated,
Yeah.
and he's not around people, like, ever these days. And
Mm.
the moment that he speaks, you can feel that pull, that charisma that he has. And then over the course of the movie, as we learn more about, his leadership and his guys just like willing to do whatever he asks, like, you understand that because we've seen his ability to command a room. We've been sucked into his stories. We can feel that pull even through the screen. And so I appreciate the way that unfolds, and you are wrapped up in his stories so that later when you learn a little bit more about who he is, you're like, ah, yeah, that makes sense.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, we totally believe and buy into uh his role and his command of his men that he shares about later. I'm curious your thoughts on a lot of the intercutting sequences that we get with oh gosh, Samantha
Samantha
Morton's character.
Morton. Yeah.
Yes, Samantha Morton's character and Samuel Bottomley. Tell me your thoughts on those because they have quite a bit of screen time. Did it work for you? Is it a little
Yeah, they
bit?
they do have a lot of screen time. It was fine. I almost wish, because Samantha Morton is a fantastic actress. She's so good. And I wish that there was more for her to do in this. That's
Yeah,
how I feel about Sean Bean too. Like, you have these two incredible actors that can hold their own with someone like Daniel Day-Lewis, and I feel like they're underutilized in this
yeah.
film. So I wish that there was more for her to do. I think she does a good job, and there are a couple of scenes that I was really amazed by her, but I they were fine. I wanted to be back in the forest.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like we get to see them, I think, too soon. I if I'm rewriting this movie, this is just my desires. Could be wrong, but this is what we almost cut to them so much and so evenly throughout the entire film that and every time I don't feel like I'm learning too much new things. You know, like obviously there's this connection point and the genetics and the natures of these two men and the father and the son. Obviously, we know that, and but by the time we're in the like third act of the film, I'm like, we got it. We got it, movie. We got it. Bring us back to these other two dudes that are like having life transformation happening over here because I think they could have been used more effectively had we heard about his wife and his son and the relationship and the whatnot. And then we begin to see and meet who they are much later. It just would be a great tactic to pull at our heartstrings and intensify the stakes. This is not now no longer just people that we hear about in Ray's life, but now we've met them and we care about them now and we're rooting for them even further. So I almost feel like they were introduced a little bit too early and then used too consistently throughout the film versus save a lot of that for like introduce them at the halfway point or the 1/3 mark, and then you can really intensify the mother and son conversations that I think are very important. But again, increasing of intensity, and this could be like the movie might not be interested in doing that, which I recognize. It wants to be a more contemplative, slow burn type of film, but I think there's a way to do that while still offering these like new layers that are unraveling about this family and their backstory and the emotions and dynamics that like I'm almost like, don't give it to me all at once. Make me work for it a little, you know? Like let me search and wonder for it. And then when I get it, it's gonna feel more satisfying versus handing it to me slowly, crumb by crumb, evenly throughout the 2 hour movie experience.
Yeah, because there's no opportunity for us to miss Brian and Nessa. You know, it's
Yeah.
they come at a steady rhythm, and
Yeah.
I think most of the time I was like, "Oh, we're back here again. Okay, like this is fine."
Yeah.
But I don't think there was ever a moment where I was like, "Man, I'm really curious what's going on with Brian and Nessa right now." And so I think if we had removed a couple of those moments and had a longer pause between them, then I think it would have been more impactful and just a nice change of scenery too. I
Mm-hmm.
feel like we saw it so consistently that it didn't feel like a nice break for us.
Yep.
It made me want to stay in the forest longer. So I think
Mm-hmm.
I agree. Those could have been utilized a little bit differently to be more visually impactful and more impactful on the story as a whole.
Yeah, yeah. I think the visual dimension is an important like ingredient in this too. I'm like, yo, if we can be in this most beautiful nature, why would I want to be in this home? Between but these two characters that are not the main characters that I don't care about. I don't know. I think they could have done something. I don't know what they could have done, but it, or even honestly highlighting even further the contrast visually between the beauty and this expansiveness of nature and then this almost like make that apartment smaller, more stuffy, more claustrophobic so that you really feel that tension of like I don't know if I'm Ray. Like I have to go face these people that I've abandoned. I need to go and live back in society. The claustrophobia of that would have been an interesting like maybe other dimension to make that choice that he finally chooses at the end feel more satisfying too, because it's not an incredible amazing option over here versus stay a hermit. It's like no, I gotta there's a lot of trade-offs that I would make to choose this other path for myself, but I'm still going to because the people are worth it, the relational building is worth it. I don't know, make have them live in a tiny, tiny place, so that we feel this like relief, when we're back. We feel something. I don't know. It was a little bit more bland in those scenes. I didn't feel anything. Uh so
Yeah. Yeah, and not and feeling nothing, like, in a bad way too. Like,
yes.
I feel like there's a way to do I feel nothing in a good way in a movie, because then you go back to something else and you feel the rush of emotions, and it's like, "Okay, that was a good contrast." But it was kind of neutral in those scenes, and for me, like, Samantha Morton is a strong enough actress that I was like, "Okay, I'm willing to, like, endure these parts," and then once we got back to the forest, I was happy again. But
Yeah.
yeah, for me, those were the weakest parts of the film is when we would go back with Brian and Nessa, and I think that is to the film's detriment because you need to have that emotional investment in these characters, not just an intellectual investment, but actually feeling like we understand what's going on. We understand why, Jem goes all the way out to try and get his brother to come back, but I didn't feel as invested as in Brian and Nessa, and I think that detracts from that feeling of satisfaction at the end of the film.
Yeah, yeah. Perhaps like if there was more there that they were showing, expressing. I don't know. I really felt much more neutral in those
Mhm.
scenes. And I'm like, I mean, they're displaying deep emotion, but I don't know. I felt kind of emotionally disconnected from it. That might be a me problem.
No, I think it's probably like a pacing issue, and then like we were
Mm,
saying, it's utilized too much too. So I think it's
yeah.
it's maybe the right things in the wrong way in the wrong time. And
Mm,
then that makes it feel not as fluid and doesn't support the film maybe as well as it could have.
mm, mm. Okay. Thank you for validating my feelings.
Yeah, dude. Always.
You were not the problem. There could have been some better choices made.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other big uh, comments, thoughts about some of the things that this film is exploring, choosing to do with the plot line, the filmmaking choices? Any thoughts?
One moment while we're talking about Samantha Morton, one moment that I
Yeah.
really loved from her is that very ending moment,
Yeah.
because she's there at the door and both these brothers show up, that she's married to one of them. The other is the father of her child. And you see so much emotion on her face and in her body language, and the way that she responds to Jem and the way that she looks at him, but then almost looks through him to Ray. And like, I was fixated on her the whole time, and she just does so much in those like few seconds. I was in awe of her, because you see all of the emotions, you see all of the hurt, you see all of the love and the sorrow and the anger. Like, you see all of that on her face and in her body in those couple of seconds. So I was
Yeah.
just, wow, amazed by her.
Yeah, yeah, and she is incredible in this film for
Hmm.
the moments that she's on screen, and it's like
Yeah.
doing everything she needs to do at the right moments. So, yeah, she did an amazing job. One of the things that I want to give a shout out to is the lighting in this film.
Yes.
There are some moments where the lighting is absolutely breathtaking. The one that really stood out to me, where I was like, "Please don't cut away from this shot," is when Ray is looking up at the sky, and the way that his face is lit was so painterly, like highlighting every crevice, every detail on his face, and hitting his nose and the side of his forehead. It's a side profile shot, was absolutely breathtaking. And so there's another lighting moment that I thought was really smart to do and aligned with the emotions of the moment, which is when Ray and Brian see each other for the first time at the end of the film. And Brian is inside of the home, and he is pretty much in shadow almost for a long period of time. He almost doesn't want to allow himself to be seen, to and you look at Ray, and Ray's almost like trying to see him clearly, and I thought that was another great moment where the lighting is actually adding to the emotions and the plot line of the moment, instead of just being like visually really cool, although it was really visually very cool when Ray was looking up at the sky. But just a lot of the lighting choices throughout this film I felt like were so intentionally designed with thought in mind. And I don't know, I feel like there's a lot of other filmmaking ingredients that I'll notice a lot more frequently in films: the score, the cinematography, all that kind of stuff. But lighting specifically is one that I think is really special and not as frequent for me. So I really noticed it in this film much more noticeably.
Yeah, yeah, the visuals in this are just incredible, and the lighting is such an important part of it. Uh, I think I've determined that like a subgenre of film that I really like is a movie that looks like a painting,
Mm-hmm.
because that would be this. Like there's so many elements of this that I'm just like, yeah, this is visual art right here. And the lighting is so important in that. Like you talk to any painter and lighting is right up there at the top.
Yep. All right. Well, this is our review and discussion of Anemone. You can find it available out in theaters. Thank you for listening to today's episode of Movies and Us. Our name sums it up. We're all about movies and the powerful ways we can connect with each other and the world around us. This podcast is about all of us and our shared stories. So everyone is welcome here, and we're so glad you spent time with us today. You can subscribe to this podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you tune to your favorite shows. Drop us a rating and review, letting us know your thoughts about the fact that Daniel Day-Lewis is back. You can connect with us on Instagram, Threads, and Blue Sky at moviesandUsPod, or email us at moviesandUsPod@gmail.com. Check out our website, andusmedia.co, for the latest on Movies and Us and our other podcast, TV and Us. By the way, we're on YouTube on video, so go check us out there at Movies and Us Pod on YouTube. We will be back next week to discuss the 2003 film Monster. This is part of our homework, our prep for the Revisionist Almanac collaboration that we did for the 2003 Year of Movies and the rewriting history for the Academy Awards. So stay tuned for that next week. In the meantime, we hope you have an amazing week, and we'll talk again with y'all very soon.